Today joining us, we have Coach Kim Mush. He's actually a coach that I swam for at UC Santa Cruz. He is an awesome coach. He's been doing this for many, many years. He has produced 100 All-American swimmers, 2 national champions, an Olympic trial qualifiers, 5 PCSC swimmers of the meet. I'm proud to say that I was one of those swimmers, 4 UCSC athletes of the year, 4 NCAA swimmers of the meet. He's been voted twice as the UCSC Coach of the Year, the PCSC Coach of the Year. He swam for Cal Berkeley, where he was a captain his senior year, and he also coached for Cal Berkeley. So quite the impressive resume there. He's been in and around the sport of collegiate swimming for quite some time. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
This is kind of a special edition interview of 6 Feet Together, a show that I do where I ask questions to gain perspective and understanding. However, normally I pre-record it and send it to the kids, but the kids are here to watch it today. So you get to see your live answers and live responses, and they'll be able to ask some questions at the end. So my first question for you then, Coach Kim, is what was your biggest challenge as an athlete or a team captain? What was your biggest challenge as an athlete or a team captain?
As team captain, you're kind of a liaison between the swimmers and the coach. And we had a great coach that worked for 40 years at Berkeley, but he wasn't a super great communicator. And so it kind of fell upon me to take the pulse of the team, kind of fill what was a legitimate issue and what was frivolous, and then take that to the coach and try to communicate with the coach, the pulse of the team. And he recognized that he wasn't a great communicator, and it was something that he worked on. But I was there before he was hired, and so I was kind of like used to a different coach and a different coaching style, and I had to make a change from Picatino, who was primarily a water polo coach, to North Thornton, who was a swim coach, and totally different personalities, totally different styles. So that was a pretty big challenge at first. Somebody who, I would talk to for 5 minutes, explain things, and he would just sit there and look at me.
Yeah.
It was like, okay.
Yes. So what was a challenge then for you as an athlete as well in college? I mean, is it the same as being an athlete in high school or an athlete in middle school?
No. In high school, being an athlete was so much easier. In college, everything is more intense. Everything is at a much higher level. The one difference is, for instance, like when we had a dual meet with Stanford or USC, there would be 5,000 people in the bleachers. And the place would be rocking and cheering, and there was pressure on you to go fast. At my high school dual meets, we might have 20 people, and you either knew that you were going to win pretty easily or not, and so there was very little pressure to perform early. But also in college, the time factor for school is much higher. When you might only take 3 or 4 classes in college, but you'll spend 15 hours outside of class that week preparing for the next hour that you're in class. And so the demands for school are so much more, it's so much more intense competing at that level. And you tend to burn the candle at both ends. A lot of times it's just a matter of getting rest and getting sleep and taking care of yourself, which was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I remember, of course, there's always the opportunity for social events. And when I was in high school, there was no social events, or if you want to call them parties. And so when that opportunity did present itself, you wanted to go and you wanted to be around people and see people, but at the same turn of the coin, like you were saying, burning the candle at both ends. I would have morning practice with you guys at 5 o'clock in the gym and 6 o'clock in the pool till 8 o'clock, at which point my classes would start. And, you don't have somebody there saying, hey, you know what, Daniel, you better go to sleep. It's your own responsibility to make that decision on what's important and what you need to do. And you definitely do burn the candle at both ends. If you don't prepare for a test and start studying 2 weeks before and you're going to try to cram the night before, well, then waking up at 5 o'clock is probably not going to be very ideal. But if you do plan on going to bed early and you've been studying for a long time, then you're just going to keep that scheduled routine. So I agree with you. Balancing college athletics and college academics it's quite the juggling act. Definitely.
Well, and also once you get into college, nobody's going to be holding your hand and making sure you go to class. Nobody's going to be calling you up and saying, gee, you didn't turn in the last 2 assignments. The college professors and the people at that level, they just take the grades, they check what your score is, and if you fail, you fail.
Yep.
And they don't care. I mean, they care to a certain degree, but it's like if you're in a class with 300 other students, they just assume, put it right on you and say, hey, if you can't handle it, then maybe you don't belong here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no emails going back and forth between your parents and them, or and unless you email them and make that communication yourself, then you just kind of fly under the radar.
Right. And because they don't have time to deal with every single student that way, and like I said, if you can't handle it and you're not mature enough to take care of your own stuff, then their attitude is you don't belong here, and they have no qualms about just failing you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what was your favorite challenge as a coach?
Oh, as a coach?
As a coach.
Challenge? Oh, swimmers and water polo players and people in general are goofy, and the biggest challenge sometimes is just finding that kid that could be a great swimmer or a great polo player, and just finding what clicks for him. My last year of coaching, I had a young Russian swimmer who was extremely good and ended up being a 3-time All-American and almost winning a couple of events at NC2As. But it took 3 years to get him to that point where he really wanted to do it. Not just kind of like, oh, I sort of want to do it, to like, I can go and I can do some damage. And that's my favorite kind of challenge.
Mm-hmm.
When you find what works for somebody, and sometimes you just have to leave them alone, and give them time to come around. You have to lay things out. You have to explain it. You have to encourage them. But sometimes once you do that, you have to stand back and let them come at it at their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my favorite challenge always, is finding what worked for that kid that really was on borderline, and then you just kind of tip them over.
Yeah, it's almost like Inception, right? You see their potential, but you need them to see their potential, and somehow you have to convince them that they do have that choice. And I think, you talk about your last year. I remember my 4 years at school, there were many, many swimmers who had the potential to just be phenomenal. Their work ethic was less than phenomenal. It was kind of getting them to self-motivate. I think you did do a good job of that as well.
That's the same at every level.
Yeah.
I had groups where a third of the group were Olympians.
Mm-hmm.
Same issues. You would think that somebody who was an Olympic swimmer would be motivated and ready to go. No, same issues. You got to find out, hey, what's bothering you? You missed yesterday's practice, or were you okay? It's still working with the person, finding out what works, finding out what kind of relationship you can have with them, and know when you can push them a little bit and when you need to back off. Yeah,
and you did do a good job of that. I don't think I ever got yelled at for missing a practice. You'd say, come into my office, we'd talk, what's going on? Hey, Kim, I had a test that I had to study for. All right, let's make sure that we're staying on top of those grades, and then, get back in the pool and make up the workout when you can. And that's kind of a relationship. Some students or some athletes need to have somebody saying, hey, I need you at practice all the time. Some athletes don't want that, and they need somebody who does step back and allow them their freedom. So knowing that as a coach, that is quite the challenge to know. So my last question before we open up the field here to all the 8th graders to ask you questions is, how do you know if a college is right for you academically or athletically?
Okay, I'm getting about half of that. into your senior year. And as you move into your senior year, you want to make sure that you've taken the classes that you need to get into school. You take the classes that you need to get into the colleges that you're interested in, because some colleges have different requirements than others. If you follow the requirements for the UC system, they have like the classes that are listed as A to G. If you follow those classes, and you can get them from your counselor, and take those classes, you will have the classes needed for the UC system, and that will probably cover 95% of the other schools in the country. So you're probably okay with that. And they're listed. You got to have 3 years at minimum of math, and you got to have 4 years of English. You have to have your government and social studies and things like that. So you just have to make sure that you just take the classes that you need. But that starts your freshman year in 9th grade. Now, as you progress into your senior year, and actually you need to start during your junior year, is you start checking out every school that you might be interested in. Now, you guys are really lucky because you could check out a school in Wisconsin, like let's say University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. You may not know anything about that except you heard of somebody that went there and they were a computer science major. So if you're interested in whatever major and you want to check the University of Wisconsin, you can just go to their website and check what's required for admission, and they will say right there on the admission page what kind of GPA you're going to need, what kind of test scores you're going to need. You know, the SATs and the ACTs. Have you guys heard of the SATs? Shake your head, yeah, okay. The SATs and the ACT tests are going away. Most of the schools across the country now are starting to not look at SAT scores. They're not using the test scores for admission. They're going to be looking at your GPA and what you've done outside of the classroom, because they want to make sure that you're just not a GPA nerd where all you've done is work on your GPA. They're going to look at if you've been volunteering at a hospital or if you volunteer at the local SPCA. They want to know if you've been on an athletic team. Are you on the chess club? Are you helping, the botany club? They want well-rounded students. So it's not just GPA and test scores anymore. Now it's mainly GPA and what kind of person you are. So things like your admissions essay is going to be a little bit more important. And so the main thing, make sure you have the classes you need. I can't tell you how many times I would recruit a swimmer and we would start looking at their transcripts, and they would be a 4.0 student, but they would be missing that 4th year of English for whatever reason. Or they didn't take, the science class that they needed, where you either have to take biology or chemistry, or sometimes both. So you've got to cover all the bases, and you've got to have a good GPA. There are a lot of schools out there that you don't have to have a 4.0. But if you're looking at, if you want to go hard science and your goal is to go to Caltech or MIT or University of Chicago, you better be up there in the stratosphere of grades. If you want to study English, a liberal arts path, then you have a lot more choices, because the vast majority of schools out there, especially the private schools, are liberal arts oriented. So you have to look at the school depending on what you want to do. If you want to be a doctor, then it helps if you go to a school like Berkeley or Santa Cruz or UCLA, a larger school with a large diversified type of pathways. You could be a biology major or a science major or whatever. And you might have a better chance of going to med school because they know that you've gone to a competitive school and you're coming out with good grades, and they feel that you would be a good student. If you want to be a writer, you might want to look at a school like Claremont McKenna or um, Whitworth or Puget Sound. It's one of the liberal arts colleges that has an emphasis more on their English, um, writing, those type of things, or like law school. You don't have to be a medical student to go to law school. They want writers. They want more of a liberal arts background if you are interested in going to law school. So you have to figure out kind of like what areas you're interested in first. Then you have to find the match. And you guys are so lucky because you have the internet now. You can go to any school that you ever hear of, and you can take a virtual tour of the campus, and you can see what's required grade-wise, how much it's going to cost, what the weather's like. All that information is available to you. And it's little things. What I have found is like it's little things that make the difference on the school that you decide. If you do your homework, you can move into your senior year with 4 or 5 solid choices that you feel are a good match for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing is you'll probably be okay at any one of those 5 schools. You want to have maybe 2 schools that you're really safe, that that your GPA is solid, that you'll get in, and maybe 2 schools that are kind of like borderline, that maybe a little bit of a reach, and then you might have that one school that's pie in the sky, like if you're a 4.2 and you've taken all the AP classes, and you go, what the heck, I'll try to get into Harvard or Princeton or Stanford. What the heck, I'll just see what happens. That's a super reach, and you never know. You might, for whatever reason, they might see something that they like and they accept you. But if you do your homework, one of those 5 schools is going to be a good choice. And when you get accepted and you're trying to decide, you just have to kind of like see how it feels. Mm-hmm. Try it on. One of the things that I always encourage students to do is, let's say you get down to your last 3 final schools. Wake up one morning and say, okay, I'm going to go to UC Santa Cruz. Walk around in your own mind, just say, I'm going to go to UC Santa Cruz, and tell everybody, Mom, I'm going to UC Santa Cruz. That's nice, dear. And then the next day, wake up and go, no, you know what? Maybe I want to go to Humboldt State and study forestry. Walk around and it's like trying on a coat. Walk around and say, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to Humboldt State and I'm going to study forestry. Oh, that's cool, dear. Okay, try it on and just see, go through all the schools that you're interested in that way. And what you'll do is you'll find that you'll keep coming back to one of the schools. It's like, oh, you know what? I kind of practice it. I really want to go to UC Santa Cruz. That's what I keep coming back to. And at that point, it's not a rational reason; it's an emotional reason, and you just pick it, and you make the decision, and you'll do just fine wherever you decide. And that also includes community colleges. California has got great community colleges. They're inexpensive. You can save a ton of money. You can get rid of all your lower division classes the first 2 years. And then you might have a whole lot more choices for your junior and senior year where you actually graduate from and get your degree. So start now. Start doing your homework. Any school you hear of that might have your interest, start checking it out online.
Absolutely. Hopefully I'm back and you guys can hear me now. I think you guys can. Even yesterday, Coach, we were talking about take into account the weather, take into account the town, take into account the lifestyle. And that doesn't mean don't challenge something that you normally do, because Santa Cruz was a big challenge from the way that I was raised in Redlands, and it was totally opposite end of the scale, but it absolutely challenged my personality and made me define myself as me. I wasn't a reflection of the people around me. I wasn't a reflection of my parents, but it made me find my own path and realize who I want to be. So there's a lot that goes into deciding a school, but there's not really one school that fits all. I know I just briefly want to say for the athletes too, there's different divisions. Look up different divisions, NAIA, D3, D2, D1, and see how much you want to commit your life to your sport, how far you plan on going with your sport, and how much you want to participate. Do you want to go D1 and sit on the bench? Do you want to go D3 and be a superstar? Do you want to go D2 and walk that fine line of how much you have to work and how much you don't, and how much scholarship money you get? And scholarships is a whole new road that we didn't get onto today. but I do want to take a couple questions here. I know that class is going to end in 2 minutes, but I strongly encourage you guys to stick around if you want to hear the answer to your questions. So I'll take questions based on people whose hands are up. I'm not even going to open my chat because I think that's why my computer crashed before. So Travis, Kutu, what's your question?
My question is it like, do you think it'd be too early to contact colleges that you're interested in, ask them about like what classes you need to take in high school and stuff like that?
All that information is available from your counselors at your high school.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to contact the schools yet. Now the schools, though, on their websites, they will have their requirements. And you want to make sure that, you're in line with whatever school you might be interested in, that those requirements are the same classes that you're taking. Some schools are easier. They have easier requirements. But like I said earlier, if you kind of follow the UC systems, A through G requirements, you're probably going to be pretty safe.
Yep, absolutely.
And if I could just add, Coach, I know that all of the counselors at the high school are going to be using a new platform called College Next.
Okay.
And you guys will be tracking your classes, and you'll be looking at colleges and looking at interests. So I know it can all sound a little overwhelming, but you have the next 4 years to explore all of these opportunities.
Yeah. You guys are so much luckier now.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to get started, guys. I was afraid. I was going to look at colleges because I was afraid I wasn't going to get into a college. Just take that step and say, what do I have to do? It's at least nice to know the road that's going to be in front of you here. And if you don't take that step, then you're kind of just shooting in the dark and you're really not aiming for a target. Find something that you want to work for. Any other questions? Just quietly unmute your mic and say question, and I'll call on you when you pop up on my screen. Again, I don't want you guys to type in the chat because it absolutely destroys my computer. Maverick, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. M, so as a young athlete who recently started out swimming, what advice do you have to give me to find a balance of how to swim and how to maintain good grades?
Well, let me tell you something. You can do both. You can't be the social butterfly and making it to every practice and be, just the greatest student in the world. You can't do all three.
Mm-hmm.
You can swim, you can study, you can do some social things, but you're not going to be able to do all three to the highest level that you can. And you're still pretty young. The main thing right now is I would listen to your coaches. I would go to every practice that you can, but you don't sacrifice that for grades, because it doesn't do you any good to be a good swimmer if you can't get into the school that you want to swim at. So don't sacrifice one or the other, but you can do both, and you have enough time. Hundreds of thousands of swimmers have done it, and you can too. You know, it's hard. It's not easy, but you can do it if you really want to.
Yeah, time management is the name of that game, big time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Just unmute your mic if you got a question, or put your hand up because I can see 9 of you. Nobody else has a question?
Oh, question.
Yes, I don't see who it is yet, but go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, yeah. So
Brandon.
When I grow up, I want to go to Loma Linda University so I can become a doctor or a surgeon. How far do they look back at your grades?
They pretty much start. Well, if you want to get into med school, they'll be looking at your college grades. To go to Loma Linda, they'll look at your high school transcripts, and essentially they start looking seriously at your sophomore year on. But in 9th grade is when you have to prepare. If you're not taking all the classes that you need to in 9th grade, so that you can take the classes that you need to as a sophomore, junior, and a senior, then you're going to put yourself in a hole. You're going to be playing catch up. So make sure that you're taking the classes that you need in 9th grade to prepare yourself for those final 3 years. But it's important even in 9th grade to start setting good habits, good grades, good study habits. And I don't know much about Loma Linda in terms of their graduation rates and, how many doctors they can send off to med school and things like that. But keep your mind open. You've got a long way to go. You've got eight years to go before you graduate from college. keep your mind open to whatever you really want to love and do for the rest of your life. Because I tell you, I know several doctors that are miserable and wish that they never went into medicine. So keep your mind open, find out what you love, and then try to find a way to have somebody pay you to do that.
Yeah, it's funny where life will take you, because I started college wanting to be a marine bio major for 2 years. Then I switched to earth sciences, and then I ended up as a modern European history. And then I thought I was going to go into law enforcement, DEA, and then I ended up becoming a teacher. So you just kind of got to ebb and flow with life and find out where your passion is. Because what your passion is right now, it might not be that in 8 years. Even sports, your passions might change, but just go in head first and see what's happening and listen to what your body's and your heart's telling you what to do and follow that. Other questions?
Yeah.
Wait here 1 second. Any other questions, guys?
Can we leave if we don't have any questions?
Yeah, if you don't have any questions, go ahead and go. Thank you guys for being patient. Make sure you write thank you to Coach Kim for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
And Coach Kim and I will stay on here for a minute. So if anybody has any questions, you just want to wait till it's just a couple people in here, feel free.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys being polite. Thank you. See you guys later. Claire, do you have a question? What's up, Claire?
So if you were like a student athlete and you were wanting to get a scholarship for your athleticism, would the colleges, what would they first look at? Like, would they be grades or like outside things, like you said?
As a coach, I'll be brutally honest with you. The first thing they're going to look at is how good you are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you are what sport are you looking at?
Soccer or basketball, I'm not sure.
Okay. Soccer or basketball? If you were 6'5" and drilled threes like Stephen Curry, they're going to find you. Okay. If you're 5'2" and you still have trouble dribbling, you're going to have to do a lot of research to find a school that might be a good match for you. There'll be a place for you. There'll be a place for you to play basketball or play soccer, but you might have to do some research to find out where that is.
Mm-hmm. Something that's super important to consider too is not everybody's meant to be D1. I thought I wanted D1, and I definitely am so happy I went D3. You have to look up the differences in divisions and find out where you're going to be participating. If I would have gone D1 at Cal as a walk-on, I would have been background noise. I would have never gotten off the bench. I would have never got a score for the team. But I went to UC Santa Cruz, and it was a great fit for me. I was a part of the team. So it's not all about scholarships and where you're going to get the most money, but it's about what's going to be the best fit for you and your desires.
I wouldn't even think about scholarships. If you progress and if you're good enough, the people that are giving scholarships, they'll find you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about it. Just concentrate on doing the best you can. And if they come knocking, they come knocking.
Yeah.
And if not, don't plan on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of scholarship money out there, but there's 1,000 schools looking for kids, and some of them are fully loaded with scholarship money, and a lot of them have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So don't make that your number one priority.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's nice to hear from a coach, though, because you hear from a lot of, college admissions people and whatnot, but it's nice to hear from a coach, different perspective on recruiting and having athletes go to school, kind of getting an understanding of there's more than just athletics. There's more than just academics. It's, are you a good person? Are you well-rounded? Do you have good moral character? Who are your letters of rec? So I think that's all great stuff. I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I know you impacted the kids, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for impacting me and inspiring me to be a better coach, because you did.
Now you're a teacher. Now you got to give it back.
I know. It just keeps going. That's 30 more years of teaching that you can add under your belt because you inspired me. So.
All right, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.